he was not killed because he gave up, so to speak, in order to survive. But he was looking and said, well, wait a minute, the Earth is not the center of the universe. Actually, we gravitate around the sun. And so he almost, because he was taking away the center, but not the Earth. The Earth meaning the humankind, not the Earth as the soul. So the Imago Dei is placed on us. This is not Imago Dei, right? This is not Imago Dei. Imago Dei is human beings. And that comes from a certain theology. And so, what are the stories that we learn? Let's go back to the beginning. Genesis. Let's see what we read. Then God said, let us make humankind in our image. See? Already there. Who is in God's image? Humankind. But then we have to think, what is humankind? Right? According to our likeness. And let them have what? Dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. Can you continue to read for me? Just keep reading.
So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have a dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth.
All right, that's what we learned, right? I mean, that's the Bible. There's a clear distinction here, right? God created the human beings, and then the rest of it. What is the rest of it supposed to do? To what?
Serve the humans.
To serve, exactly. To be dominated. To all give itself over to the humankind. And that's what we learned. That's why we have this distinction between culture and nature. And what is the distinction between culture and nature? Nature is this wild thing, uncontrollable, have a mind of its own, can be scary. It has its own rhythms, has its own pace, creates things. And what is culture? What we create over the wildness to control. Culture is that which we have control over. So we dominate the wilderness, and turn the wilderness into a dominion. So our idea is that we have to have this control over, because we are above and beyond that situation. So the controlling of nature is the living of our fullness as humankind. The same thing with the animals. The animals are there for our own sake. The animals are there for our pleasure. We eat whatever we want at the time that we want, in whatever pace we want, because the animals are stupid things, or at least not brilliant enough to be like us, because we think they don't. We feel they don't. We can create, they can't. So there is this deep distinction that comes basically from this narrative for us Christians. Right? And in that way, this dominion is not only our gift, but this dominion is our task, right? God demands us to go and have dominion over everything. And based on this, we establish this distinction between us and the rest of it. With time, we will see that we don't not only do this dominion over creatures, but we do this dominion over each other. Right? And that's why we have hierarchies. And this is two things that I love about the Baptists, that I love it. One is, because of the water is fundamental, you get a little bit closer to what nature, even though we spiritualize the water in all of our Christianity, this is all about the regeneration of our lives and sin and more and everything, but there's something closer to that. And the fact that Baptists are not that hierarchical in terms of, bishops and people, cardinals and all of that. And so, as a Presbyterian, we do not have that too. I enjoy very much. I have some kind of allergy also against that kind of hierarchy. Why somebody has to tell me what I need to do? I mean, we're just equal. Oh, they say, we are equal too. Yeah, we are equal, but you have power over me. So no, but we'll do it together. Yeah, we'll do it together, but you tell me where I go to serve. And you sit there in your throne and you keep telling people, you go there, you go there, you go there. So anyway, that's another discussion for a theme next year.
I think we need to pick apart the word dominion a bit.
Go ahead.
Stewardship.
Do you think that's what it means? Well, I understand you were trying to save that. I know.
I've heard that as the more appropriate. I don't know the languages enough, but
Sure. But if I love that to be true, I would love that to be true. But if you look at our world, is that what we do?
No.
There you go.
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm saying I think that's perhaps the intention, as understood by, maybe not as understood by the people that were listening when God was talking before creation and all that.
What I'm trying to convey here is more of a common sense of what we have received from simply reading, but we can go there. But we're not going to go there. But there's later we'll go to that. We'll get there, my brother.
Hold that thought.
But that's what we read in our churches. We just for churches who do the Triduum during the Easter, on Saturday evening, you do all of the readings, and one of the readings was that, and I did that with my children at church, and that's what they heard. And I asked them, so what is this? I said, well, you have to dominate them, right? No. There's something else about that. But that is how we were shaped, and that's how we actually live, as if there is a distinction. We own this thing. Even the notion of stewardship can be also grounded in the sense of responsible over, in a sense of this uneven relation. So what this kind of reading has done is that we have made the earth as the motherlode, right? The earth is a machine, and we are the masters of that machine. The earth is a sculpture, and we are the sculptors, the one who go there to fix it, to organize, to take away the wilderness, to shape it. The earth is a thing, and we are the owners. We own the land, right? Every piece of land is owned by somebody, right? And this is one of the things that we never think, is that we are what we call public worship service is public to a point. Because it's public, but it's grounded on a private notion of a space. Even the public spaces are public for whom? If you go to the square right 5 blocks from here, there's a square here that is public. There's all where the homeless people go, and they live there. Public until somebody comes and kick them out. They are not homeless. They should be there. They should be all over, but it's for the goodness of the people, right? There's the sense of public. There's this great story at the Presbyterian Church, Fifth Avenue in New York. I don't know if you have heard once. There were homeless people sleeping on the steps of the church because a little bit in, like 2 steps in, so you get off of the wind. And you know, in New York, the wind can be brutal. And so they're going, and so it was filled with homeless people. And so then the neighbors start to tell the city that they are not supposed, because there's a law that they cannot be in that public space. Oh, no, this is ours. No, but still, they are disturbing the peace. So when people have that notion of the other, we already have the dominion over. There's a distinction between I am one kind of human being and you are another kind of human being, right? And so my kind can have a place to sleep. Your kind, I'm sorry, you something happened to you. It's not my fault, but it's yours, and so whatever, I just get out of here. And so the church bravely, the church bravely sued the city because they wanted to have that, to fight for the homeless. And what is absurd for me, it was not even picked up because, you know, the church was like championing for the homeless. And I just asked this one, did you, in all this moment, did you a little thought crossed your mind to actually open the door?
Yeah, right.
Let them in? But why not? It's the word that all of the churches love now, that you cannot do things with poor, and that's the word that saves us from so, that's not our problem or our vision. We are ready to do the mission with these people. We are ready to love them. We are ready to welcome them. We are ready to give everything to them. But there's this thing that every city demands us on this thing called liability. Phew. We cannot do anything. I'm sorry. And then you're saved. We are not called into our mission because you're saved. It's not us. We are ready. Oh yeah. But we cannot because it's their liability, and then we don't have enough in us to go over it. But there's this fantastic story. Every time I tell the story of another church in Minnesota who, brutal cold there. And so what they do is that they didn't have enough money to create like a place for people to sleep. How do you call it? Shelter. Because there are also many requirements, right? Regulations and liability. And so what they did was fantastic. Throughout the winter, they did a vigil. A vigil every day from 9 to 6. A vigil. We were going to help it. So somebody would go there, and everybody could come, and they were coming for the vigil. And so they could sleep on the pews and on the floor while the vigil was going on. Isn't that beautiful? I love that.
Creative.
What's that?
Creative.
Exactly. So like you're doing both of your mission in one. You're praying and you're serving. So I thought it was fantastic. Anyways, the earth is to give and we to take. And here is the issue of desire, right? We are the ones who desire. The earth doesn't desire a thing. We are the ones who desire. And our desires must be met. I need this. I have to have that. And then as much as we start to have more and more, the more entitled we become. How dare you, I don't have this coffee this morning. How dare you not having my towel washed? How dare you didn't serve me in the way that I want? How dare you do not have the car that I want? How dare you do not have? How dare, it's just this entitlement. So the earth has to abide under our desires. So we are the desired ones, and the church and the earth is the one who gives us what we want as a servant. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. We are here for you.
So if you go back to Elohim Amar, or God said, let us do this, or let the earth bring forth, and then at the next verse is God made. It's always God made. God said, then God made. But the way when he says, let us make man in our image, I totally get that God there is plural, so that's us. But that's not seen in any other part, that let us cause the earth to bring forth. Because it could have easily been said, let the earth bring forth. But in our image, our shadow, our representation, then it would follow theologically one of two things. One is the only thing created before man was animals and plants. So maybe in our image would refer to everything created before. Or, I mean, that's very simplistic, I know. Maybe not theologically correct. But then the other would be, it's in the image of God. If it's the shadow of God, the phantom of God, the representation of God, then mankind would have dominion over the earth the way that God has dominion of us, and we see God as caring for us, which gives more the stewardship. But it's interesting to me that Jesus liberated that passage from the image of God.
Right. Exactly. We have this distinction. Even if this parallel that you're saying, right, this mirroring, us God and us the earth, there's not quite the same, right? Because we have to do God's will as the earth has to do our will. So if we go into this mirroring, it's exactly it, actually. Because we are faithful to God as the earth must be faithful to us. In that way, there's the other twist of what you're saying. There's the good part of it, that is more of a relational thing that you're calling, which would be fantastic if we could do that. But I think it has still this two reigns, which is qualitative and different.
The difference is, as we do God's will, but we expect God to equip us, God to care for us. We don't worry about anything because God's got our backs if we're doing God's will. So the earth, therefore, the animals, the plants, everything within the earth should not worry because we got its back the way God has our back in the sense of dominion.
Yeah, that's the
if
good
it's
part of
near
it.
the shadow of that.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, no, yeah.
That we've liberated that, how we don't have to have the same
Good point.
responsibility.
You
God
bring a
does.
lot. Yeah, you bring a lot out that we could just stay there. It's powerful. Yeah, but I don't think we have that, and that is because I think this is also. It's because our Christian spirituality is divided into the world of ideas and world of matter, right? How far is it? 9:44. Still have some time. Our spirituality is all based on ideas, right? Because we serve God, but who is God? Is it a being? Is it a spirit? And once we use the word spirit, it loses the matter. Not a spirit, different than matter. Right? And so if that is spirit, where is it?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. And there's a thing, is that if God is everywhere, then God is nowhere. In some way, because God is everywhere, so what everywhere means? In that garbage can, is in the abject parts of the world, is in the sanitary thing. So where is this everywhere? If everywhere, then it has to be everywhere. we have some problem with it, right? So, where is God? So the idea, so when we come to church, there is a sense in which God will be there, right? And for those churches that have the sacrament, God is in the sacrament, so that is the heightened place where you go to actually meet God. So the sense of the altar, right? The sense of the altar, even though Baptists don't have that altar as in other traditions, still has this upper sense of the sacred, right? When you're looking to God, you're looking that way. You don't look to the door to look for God, right? There's a sense in which everything is here. So there's a concentration of heaviness of the sacred right here, right? And so, then that, because we have this idea of God, it is hard to have a spirituality that is grounded in matter. No, we're developing it, right?
You're right, but the communion table is that center, and the communion table, by its very word, it's community.
Indeed, we are going to get there. We're going to get there. Hold on, and I promise that you're going to get there. Just, I'm not trying to take away your.
You're fine, I'm sorry.
Where is it? It's right here. See, Christ's ordinance is baptism and Lord's Supper. That's why I'm just promising you that we're going to get there. I'm not trying to avoid it because you're bringing good things, sister. Keep coming, keep bringing. And I love this challenge too because I literally don't have what I believe is that our knowledge is in between you and me, not me. Right? It's right here in between what we bring. So that's why it's very important what you're saying too. But we holding on just a little bit to that, there is a sense in which the idea is elsewhere. So you ask people when they go do communion, what is it that you're doing? Not everybody knows it. Oh, are you taking God? Are you taking communion? Meaning the bread means what?
The body of Christ.
The body of Are you eating the body of Christ?
Not literally.
Not literally, of course. Those Catholics. But so if not, you're just taking bread. So is bread what? So and that's the history of Christianity since Reformation. We are having this theological gymnastics to see where God is. So some will say, no, it is the body of Christ, literally. And others will say, like the Lutherans, I love the Lutherans because they say, no, it is not God, but the bread does not have God in God's self, but has it in, under, and around. Luther was brilliant. It's not a thing, because if you call that the thing God, then you're an idolater. Idolater. So no, you cannot. But it is around, in, within, up, below, 2 square inches to the next, 2 square inches to the side. So it is always a way of, and then Calvin too. He said, no, it's not real God, it is the real presence. So that means that they're really there. No, not really, but it's the real presence. But it's really there. No. It takes you to the presence of God. So, but where is the presence of God?
Everywhere.
Like you're describing around the wafer.
Exactly. So it's everywhere. So where does it take me? Everywhere. So where is God taking me? The Holy Spirit. It's like elevator that takes us to God and then come back. No, it is not. But so this is to say how complicated our spirituality is. Right? Because we live in the world of ideas. Right? Which shouldn't be. Because the major aspect of our faith is grounded in one thing called incarnation. God with us. Flesh and bones, sweat and tears, and blood. But how do we connect to that, right? So, if we get the cross, how do we connect that with our spirituality? So, we tend to do into this idea of the handsome, for instance. It's an idea. of what God has done. But what does it have to do with my body? Right? And there was one movement in the early church, it's called the Donatists, that they couldn't do anything real with the body because everything was spiritual. And so what is the relation between the spirit and the flesh? It seems like in most understandings of that, I'm talking about like common sense, at least that I grew up with, is that there's a clash between the spirit and the flesh. Like in Paul, it's usually read as if it is the sarcasm, is the body against the spirit. That's why he says, oh, my spirit is ready, but my flesh is weak. And I'm always ready to mess up. But in my spirit, I want it. But here I'm doing. So, and then we have this distinction between the world of ideas, which is my spirit, and my body, who is fighting against that, right? And that is because our story is also made of Greek mythology. If we were made of African mythologies, you would have had an entire different story right here. You go into African religions, everything is based on the earth, on leaves. And we're going to get there too. The whole sense of the African, like if you go to in Brazil, there's the African Brazilian religions, and every worship place has to be done in a little neck of the woods. Has to be trees, has to be plants, has to be creatures crawling, has to be nature. Because they do their offerings there. Because the gods are all related to material things. All related to food. And that's not to deny the movement of the spirits. Because they're energies, they're floating. But you organize the world of the spirit through the leaves, the trees, the offerings. That's why. If you get Native Americans too, every myth of creation, it is about turtles. It is about the heaven and the sky as one thing, moving from and to. And how you organize it. And there are rituals. Like now, there's this indigenous community in Brazil. They are doing a lot of the rituals to not let the sky to fall. Because the disasters are so great, they are seeing the falling of the sky. There's this fantastic book by David Kappenauer, this Yanomami shaman that you all should read, called The Falling of the Sky. That it is the best compendium of indigenous theology there is without Christianity. It is fascinating. But our mythology doesn't come from the Africans or from the Asian world or from the indigenous people. Our mythology comes from where?
Greeks.
The Greeks. That's what we learned. Right? I learned in Brazil that the cradle of humanity comes from where? Greece. All of the building of our thinking must come from Greece. The pre-Socratics, I know you know all the story, the pre-Socratics, the Socratics, and then moving on. And that's what our theology has been since ever. We deal with Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, but we don't deal with the Native Americans, we don't deal with African thinkers, we don't deal with women, because the cradle, and this is so ridiculous, right? If you see, where's the cradle of civilization? Where does it come from? Where's the literal cradle of civilization? Where everything started? Where did everything start? Africa. If we are to go back to our birth, we have to start going on into the African stories. And I wish you would just put a halt and put all of the Greek myth and all of the European theologies in a quarantine, so that we'll only read, I wish a seminary would be only like this, that we'll only read African stories, Native American stories, and Asian stories. That's the only way to build a different Christianity. Otherwise, we continue this movement. Why? Let's get one of the myths of Plato. Have you heard of the allegory of the cave? So, our story is this. We are afraid to go to the light. So we stay inside because we are used to this place. There's a fire. And the fire is making us see things because there's this paraclete here to move things around. And we think that this is real. So the idea of Plato is that there is a world of essence and a world of objectivity, so to speak, or the world of realization. So this world, it is just a shadow of the real thing. So everything that we have now, it is just an image of what the thing is. Like this pulpit, this is just a shadow of the real one. The real one, it is in the world of essences. And that's what we have. We have God in the world of essences, and we are the shadow of that real thing. And that means that we create a world of two structures. It's leveling two parts. You have the world of the real thing, of the essence, which are the real things, and then you have the world of shadows, which is the things that only represent the real thing. So, but we don't do that only with God. We do it with the ways that we think. So we have this dualistic view. So let's imagine this dualistic view. I'll give you a pair of things and you tell me who lives in what world. Let's start there. Earth and humankind. Humankind and the earth. Men and women. That's obvious. Should I start with that one? Men and women. Heterosexuality and homosexuality. Blacks and whites. Sacred and profane. That's why when we go to the table, we have this sense of this Greek mythology in our Lord's Supper. If we do it the way that Africans do it the way the Native Americans do, and you don't need to elevate anything because the earth is sacred. Do it on the ground. Why we do on the table? Because we have to elevate. To get out of the dirt. We call it dirt. We're made as dirt. So we dirt in a way we should be. But we have to become. Right? That's why we need God to become sacred, because we are dirt in sin. That's why the baptism, to regenerate our sinful nature. That's why. So it matters how you believe your baptism is. What does it do? Right? So we put everything on top. Interesting, because some places when I do the Eucharist that I bring the earth. I always love to bring the earth and I put at the table. And that's the difference, the theological difference that we don't have time to go into, between table and altar. We use tables. Some people use altars, which is a different thing. An altar, you have the holy things, you sacrifice things, right? And the table, you just put stuff in it.
It's daily life. It's the daily life.
It's a daily life, yes. Right. But we already, if you go to Asian things, they sit on the floor. Africans, they cook on the ground. indigenous people too, because there's sacredness right there. So everything is moved in these two realms. And that means that that's what we do with the earth and ourselves. So our spirituality is filled with that distinction. So we are connected with heavens, but we dismiss the earth. We can't wait to live this place. God, when you come, my mom says that I'm waiting for God to take me away from here. My aunt would say, Cláudio, God has already passed the time to come. God should have already come here because look what you're living. We need to go out of this place. Our prayers go above where it goes. Heavens, right? We wait for a new heaven, a new earth, but a new earth, not this one, because this one doesn't matter. This one is going to be consumed. This one's going to go out. This one's about. And you know what's happening, and the way that I grew up, if I was still in that place, I said, that's exactly what the Bible says. It's burning. It's ending because that's what the Bible said. It has to end. Because we will have a new earth. Because this one is sinful. Wow. Marked by sin. And it will not see God enough to be healed. And that's how you understand Romans when Paul says, the earth cries out in pain. The way that I grew up is to understand, yes, because you need to be redeemed by the time when God comes. So it is the pain. Our body, it is also a thing that gets used. And we start to get older. Things start not to function. This is the sense of decrepitude of our body. See, that's why it is. It doesn't matter much because we're going to die anyways. Where does it go? It doesn't matter, right? For some people, and this is the work of decolonization, to take us out of the earth. It doesn't matter where we are buried in some ways. Well, we want some kind of relation with our family, but not with the earth. It's very different when you do that with Africans again and with Asians and some Asians and with some Native Americans. You have to be there because it is the part you have to honor your ancestors. They have to live, even dead, they have to live near you. Because they have to give you sustenance, they have to give you wisdom, they have to come and visit you, they have to come and help you go. What is our connection with ancestry? We don't. And because there's this, we are cut from the earth. It doesn't matter if you want to put hanging somewhere else, our ashes is fine because it just doesn't matter. Because we're cut from the earth. We live in this eschatology, the end of times. We're waiting for it. The liturgical calendar, and I don't know if you Baptists follow the liturgical calendar. Some do, some don't. And what?
Which Baptist?
Yeah.
Which exactly. But when you follow the liturgical calendar, it's always based on time. Why? Because we don't need space. It's all based on time. This is the time for what? Time for this feeling. Time for this. Time for this. Time for Advent. Time for Transfiguration. Time for Easter. Time for Pentecost. Time for ordinary times. But always time. We don't have a single connection with the earth. However, we come from our reading, and our faith comes from the Jewish. And every single feast of the Jewish community is based on what? The earth. Harvest. Pentecost. If we are the true heirs of Pentecost, it should be about harvest, not about power somewhere. truly about harvest. But if we are truly Pentecost, we have to fight fiercely for the earth. Because it's about the harvest. It's about the fruits of the earth. Our Pentecostal move is just about spirit or languages, or it's detached from the earth. See, everything in our faith has nothing to do with the earth. Yeah, now, my sister, I'm getting it now. Yeah, so now you get me. But the ordinances, baptism and Lord's Supper, they are fundamentally nature elements. But we have nothing to do again with the earth. We talk about community. But community of whom? People. Do we talk about community of animals? No.
One day a year. Yeah.
One day. The Earth Day. Exactly. That's like you should see that in New York. The St. John Divine, they have the Earth Day, and they let everybody bring their pets.
That's right.
And they have a procession of all animals. And it's beautiful. They get the oldest piece of stone that they know, and bring in a pillow. It's beautiful. It's just like a piece of stone. I love that. That's the reverence to the earth. And it's that's my favorite day. It's not Easter, it's not Christmas, it's that day. And when you do the worship there is the sound of every animal. Here's the pastor saying, and God said, and then let us confess our sins. And parakeets and everything. Lizards, turtles. It's a mess. Poop everywhere. Thanks be to God. I love that because finally we are a community, a full community of living beings. Not only us. We have the sense that the animals are belittling our sacred spaces. Why we have that? Open your churches and tell people to bring animals. Some people run away. But some people will come because a lot of people live with animals as if it's the only thing they have. Why we don't allow them to come? Why? Because we have a sense that the sacred is us. Animals are stupid things. Or at least they do not deserve to be in a sacred space. It's like children. We treat children as stupid humans. Right? They're not humans yet. So we have to say that we have to tell them everything. They have no knowledge. We have to tell them what you think, what you feel, what you go, because they have no... the time that we have for children, and I know we all have this for children in my church too, so I'm criticizing all of us here, not you. But what you know with the children is this. Time for children. And then, barely the pastors care for something about that. I usually like is the assistant pastor who will do the children, because they know the real pastor will do the sermon. But the youth pastor will take care of that time and let's go with it. And so there is some laughter, there's some lovely times. It's just like no more than 5 minutes, and then go away. Oh no, but we don't send them away because we love them. We're going to give them exactly what they need, but away from us. What? I would love to do this one time. Oh, I'd love to do this. One day we'll do the exact opposite. We'll call all the adults. Come here. Let's listen to a crappy sermon here. Yeah, ta-da-da. Isn't that fun? Oh, did you see? Oh, is that little? Yeah, now go away. Only the kids gonna stay. All the adults, go find your Sunday school. I'd love to do that one day. Then we'll know what he feels. Oh, no, but we love you, adults. We're going to give you a great Sunday school. Go away. Because we have this sense. Right? We have this sense. I love this church. Once I was going to preach, and then there are papers around, and all the children came around to draw around me. And then it was fantastic because I was completely lost. What do I do with them here? It's almost like I same with people. We do the same with animals. And if we were to be a real, church should be like an African religion. You have a little garden back there that you would do your harvesting. So everybody should connect your faith with the harvesting of something.
So, our story about Jesus born and being laid in a manger and the animals are there, how did we divorce that from?
We take away Jesus from the manger and put him in gold at the top of our cathedrals. And then we go from Jesus who was an illegal immigrant, a refugee, with the parents running away because they're going to be killed. And we turn them into the Christ, you know, the Greek, pantokrator. Well, you have some of that. See, we have, well, at least he has children here. Right? Then the disciples said, Jesus, go away with them. I said, no, they are the ones who have the words of the kingdom. So one time I was in this church and this little baby started to cry. And you know, and when a child starts to make noise, the whole congregation lovingly, like here's the brother who has the children, everybody goes like this. And don't say anything. Do we need to say anything? And the second time. The third time is almost like. So I did with this church was like this child. Every time she would say, I would say, well, no, because she was leaving. I said, no, sister, come back. Sit here. Stay here. Every time your child makes a noise, we're all going to say hallelujah. Oh, it was not a Pentecostal church. But this church has never said so many hallelujahs in their entire lives. In one Sunday, they covered 10 years of hallelujah. It was fantastic. We do have it. Our Jesus exactly in the manger with animals. Right there. We lost that. Baptism, water. Water. Do you call the rivers of your community when you baptize someone? Do you honor the rivers? Do you honor the fish? They're too polluted. There's almost no river that is in clean condition right now. What does it have to do with your faith? If you're baptized and water is what holds you, what is it that you're not caring for every water? Every single river, we don't even know the names of the rivers, or if you know, we don't even stop there. How we do that? The same thing with the Lord's Supper. We talk about wheat. We talk about grapes. We talk about the earth. It is the earth who gives to us. Who gets rich? The Welsh. You know the Welsh made their first money because of Christians drinking juice. The grape juice. That's how they start to get rich. We don't have what is the connection between the earth to the table? We don't have that connection, do we?
But it's trendy. The farm-to-table restaurants right now are very trendy.
It's very trendy. We didn't get that yet in our churches. But if we do, so do you still really want to do that thing with your Lord's Supper? You really want to go through the chain? If you go through the chain, you're going to be very frustrated, at least, to know that what you celebrate as one of the most sacred things is actually tainted by injustice. Because the ones who prepare that very bread and that very juice for you are undocumented Latino people that we blame as illegal and a threat to our country. Wow. They are the ones preparing the holy time for all the Christians in this country. Wow. Wow. You see the blood dripping? What is the connection? What is the relation? So, if we gather as a community and if we do this this gathering as a community. What is the community? That you mentioned the community. We are doing it as a community. Who is part of this community? Who is part of who has the Imago Dei? Who carries the possibility of being human? See, the indigenous people in Latin America, they don't see the distinction between humans and animals. For them, all of them are different forms of humanity. So they don't have this distinction. Everybody belongs to the same structure. Everybody's human. And it is true because humanity comes from the word humus. And humus is what? Earth. Soil. I did this conference in Brazil that I got a piece of a cup filled with soil and seed. It said, "Come, take my body, given to you." And there was this upheaval because I was completely disrespectful with the Eucharist. Because you cannot see that. The humus, the human, all of us, every animal, we come from the same thing. And we have to gain a much better sense of what animals are and do and feel and connect. When you go into extractivism, to take all the minerals from a mountain, there was this group of people in Brazil asking these indigenous people, can we go to that mountain? And they say, why do we go there? The mountain's going to suffer. It will hurt. They are not only, they are living beings. They breathe, they feel. And not only that, they carry our ancestors. You cannot touch it. We just see a mountain as a bare thing out of nothing. Because God is elsewhere in the ideas. If we gain that deeper connection with the earth, that's when we have. So if we talk about the earth as a beloved community, we must talk about the liberation of those who suffer. If we talk about liberty or liberation, we must talk about liberty or liberation for the earth as well. And the animals. The ways that we are doing, Amazon is being devastated to become grass, to have cattle. There are more cattle in Brazil than human beings right now. More than 220 million cows or cattle in Brazil. Why? To serve our appetite. To serve us. So there is enormous devastation of the forest to create the grass.
That creates climate change.
And that creates climate change. This, we are now into this world, what is called the extractivism, right? How much time we have? That's it.
15 minutes.
Oh, 15 minutes. So, I was talking about colonization, which is to dispossess someone from their place. Is to turn you and me as inhabitants and people who actually belong to a place and turn us into inquilinos, into renters. So now we have one small percentage of our population who owns most of the land. And they turn us all into renters of that place. To dispossess is to break the connection between us and the earth. And you see, that's why so much anxiety and depression and fear. Because when we are connected with what? We don't know. With what are we connected to? This thing is our most important connection these days. This is when we feel safe, calm, grounded. I remember when I was on the verge of having some panic attacks, I was going into the subway. And my phone was 2% and I was going to lose my connection. I went out of the subway. Because I couldn't bear the feeling of being without connection. We don't go to the bathroom without them. Don't tell me you don't. But then I start to think, what is it that I'm connected to? Is my family enough to be connected with? How am I connected to the ground? See, Buddhist meditation started to help me a sense of grounding. Because my prayers are too much elsewhere. And the Buddhist meditation is helping me to pray better. You know, when Buddha was being attacked, the same way that Jesus was tempted, Buddha was also tempted by Mara, and he was sitting on the ground. When Mara brought all of the evil spirits to destroy him, what he did to push them away was nothing more than touch the ground and call the earth as his witness. The moment he touched the ground, all of the spirits went away. If we return to the earth as our ground, as our belonging, I think we start to revamp our whole spirituality. I have some videos to show you, but I won't because I don't have time. So I'll leave you with those comments. What our faith has to do with the rhythms of the earth, the sounds of the birds, the feelings of the mountains, the movements of the sea, and the lives of the fish. The essential beauty of the plankton. You know, plankton is what gives us oxygen.
That's right.
And they are in a very fast pace of destruction right now. What our faith has to do with the renewal of the soil and the importance of the seeds. You know, whomever owns the seeds owns our lives. You never pay attention to that. Monsanto, Bayer, BASF, all of this agribusiness. Agribusiness is what's killing us. Mineral companies. They're doing dams everywhere. Fracking and all of that. They're literally taking apart the core of the earth. And the temperature is going up. We only have, there's no way to talk about it without being alarmist, right? But we have 10 years before we get to 2%, 2 degrees, 2 Celsius degrees. If that goes to that, we have no way to go back. So I'm teaching a class at Union next semester, which is to do ritual of the mourning of the earth, of the death of the earth. Because instead of having us anxious and desperate, we have to find a way of mourning ourselves, mourning the earth, so that we can muster resistance. There are ways to do things. And some things are being done everywhere. But we need more than that. We need more than that. And in that way, I've been challenged these days not to save the doctrinal aspects of Christianity, but to save the earth. That is my most fundamental commitment. And for that, I'll change anything. And I'm changing the way that I'm seeing my own spirituality and my relation to God. Because I need to do that. Otherwise, there's not going to be earth for me to pray or for my children to pray to God. So I think it's a challenge for us. In what ways we are going to talk about liberating the earth? So we need a new awareness, a new altar call. There might be a nature call, a new conversion, a new orientation with new rituals and new relations. A new spirituality that organizes our relation with the earth, not as a one-way relation, but as a circular relation. A new theology that will say, we don't own the land owns us. God is in each leaf, every living creature, each and any things. But if you do that challenge, you will bring new demands, new difficulties, new challenges, new ways of living, new ways of believing, new struggles. And I think one way for us to learn is to lean closer to African mythologies, is to lean to indigenous communities. Because they are the ones who have survived over 500 years of colonization, and they're still here. And we haven't used all of the land yet because the indigenous reservations are still intact because they know how to do it. In Brazil, there is this dismantling of all of the indigenous communities right now. The president is talking to Trump for the exploration of the Amazon. We are going through serious problems now unless we learn different forms of thinking, different forms of believing. There's not going to be an earth for our kids. And we're not talking about 100 years anymore. We're talking about 30 years, we're talking about 50 years until there's no way back. I think there's a challenge for us as Christians, especially because our faith is marked by natural things, water, earth. And I think we have a community of stewardship, my brother, and that goes back to what you're saying, of stewardship. Exactly. We need to be better stewards of the earth in an equal relation. I don't think we have more time. Anybody wants to say something in the shop?
I think this is wonderful. Very enlightening.
Thank you, my sister Bashir. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so passionate about all of this, but this is a former teacher and somebody, I'm so on board with all this, but I really think this goes in, the bottom line is, the cornerstone is educating our children and teaching them the same passion. And frankly, I think that everything should be equal, but I think we need to be prioritizing our children in this talking about humanity and living in harmony, because if our kids don't have a mindset of liberation, it's not going to happen.
That's right.
So I mean, like, I'm all for animals in the sanctuary, but like, are the children bringing in the animals, you know?
Yeah, I don't think we need one over the other, but a connection. But now, if our children, I mean, in Europe, you know, there has been a manifestation of children saying, we are destroying our future. They are going out. They are telling, and that's why we don't hear. The children are talking about guns, the children are talking about, they are talking about things that we cannot, that we are just like paralyzed. They're going to the streets, we are not. Where are we? So that's what goes back to, they have the words of the kingdom. Right there. Goes back to what you're saying.
So, we have in the text the second creation story.
We do. Genesis 2.
And the second creation story is much more like the mythologies that you've been speaking of, African and Asian. And maybe we let that creation story speak, and the first creation story maybe stays quiet for a while.
Absolutely.
Yes?
Absolutely. We have to go more into Genesis 2 instead of Genesis 1.
Or the third creation story in the book of Job, where you have God as the wild thing against the structured of the transactionalism of the friends of Job.
Transactionalism, yeah, go away from this transaction with God. This just shows one thing. We do know it. The resources are right here. We don't need to go to experts. We know it. The experts can help us, but see, we have great theologians right here. It is within us. Oh, we don't have the resources. Liar. We do. We do. We know it. We know it. We cannot say, oh, let's see if somebody's going to come and save us. No. There's no savior complex here. We are the ones we have been waiting for. That's the spiritual. We are the ones who have been waiting, because God has already sent us to ourselves. And we are Jesus to each other. And we are Jesus to the earth in that sense of honoring the earth. And it is our task to do so. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate this time. Thank you for coming.